about Nvidia, Nvidia was founded in 1993 and has pioneered the art and science of visual computing. The company's technologies are transforming a world of displays into a world of interactive discovery for everyone from gamers to scientists and consumers to enterprise. Prior to Nvidia, dating back to 25 years prior to that, Shankar has held leadership positions at ICL Fujitsu, Sun Microsystems, IBM, Canada Software, and finally as a Chief Marketing Officer at Yugma. Shankar has also been a board member at TIE Silicon Valley from 2008 to 2011 and has been actively involved in guiding TIE Silicon Valley and TIE globally. Shankar is also an investor and a strategic advisor to several startups. Today, he'll be talking about the next big opportunity in technology, opportunities for technology entrepreneurs in parallel computing and using GPUs. Shankar has traveled all the way from San Francisco to be here to share his presentation and his thoughts and ideas on how to build the next disrupting technology and company. And please give a round, a nice, warm welcome to Shankar.
Thanks a lot. This whole thing started with Kunal talking to me about how to sell better, and he was planning to start up. So I've been in touch with Kunal over the last few years, and I'm on my way to Europe, and he said, "Will you just stop by in Tampa, Florida?" So I said, "Okay, why not?" So anyway, I'm from Nvidia, and we work with video and audio, so I thought we should see a video. This is a little bit old. It's about 2 years old, but it's still very, very relevant. So I'd like to start with that. Thanks. And those of you who use this app called Shazam, if you'd actually put on your Shazam and pointed it at any point of time at the screen, it would have told you that was Van Halen playing right now. And hold that thought, because that's where this thing is headed. So let me take you through this story. And my objective is to share with you, normally I don't do this. Normally I actually sell, right? But the people who are buying are large corporations. But today what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you what this technology is all about, why it's disruptive, what disruptions are happening, and what opportunities arise as a result of those disruptions for small-scale entrepreneurs and startups, and how you can use this disruptive technology to solve new problems and just do cool things, and hopefully have a bit of fun and make a bit of money along the way. So that's what this is all about. Now, I'll be very happy to take questions. I'll probably take about 35 minutes or so, and then we'll leave enough time for questions. Does that work? Yeah. Okay. So as I said, I don't want to say too much about the company. Basically, it's all about visual computing. And today we say visual computing, but I want you to think vision is one sense. It's the most important sense. We have 5 senses. And these senses are driven by the brain and by the nerves and so on. And these senses do things for us. The most important sense is the eye. But there are other senses, and as we build out this Internet of Things that's happening, it's going to be all about sensory computing, which is something beyond visual computing. As a company, as I said, we're about nearly 20 years old, and we're about $4.5 billion. $3 billion of that is our consumer business. And the 2 businesses in the middle, Pro Visualization and Design, HPC and Visit Data and Analytics, those are the businesses that I run. It's about $1 billion business now. About 3.5 years ago, it was a $400 million business, and we have aspirations for significant growth. So, kind of, everyone says, what do we do? We make something called a GPU. What is a GPU? Well, a few years ago, when our company started, this was what a GPU did. This is one of the earliest computer games, and this was a huge advancement over what went before. Because what went before was Pac-Man, going around a screen, and you sort of manipulated it. And if you're kind of like an old guy like me, you had the freeware, before even color screens came about, you had freeware Unix called the BSD distribution, and within BSD there was something called Euro, and you manipulated Euro in a 24/80 screen with a keyboard. And here you have a GPU, and GPU in this case is doing gaming, and notice there's 2-point perspective. Notice there's some shadows. Notice there's some additional data on the screen. Notice you get a feeling for the scene, and notice you get a feeling for kind of speed, right? And this was a huge advance at that point of time on what went before. And here is probably the latest, greatest in computer gaming right now. This is Epic Unreal Engine. If you look carefully, you can see the multiple light effects. You can see the light streaming through the windows. You can see the shadows happening as a result of the light, the material properties are captured. It's almost unbelievably real. And what you're watching here is not a movie. Your kids who are playing this game, or maybe some of you are playing the game too, this is interactive. So as the character moves, the light moves too, the effects change, and it's recomputing it in that 1/60th of a second within which your eye is reacting to what's happening on the screen. Okay, so this is interactive, completely real gaming. And we're not at the end of this innovation. It's going to get better and better and more realistic as we move along. And why is this happening? What's the underlying technology that is enabling this amazing, unbelievable reality, so to speak, is what's called the GPU. And you know, all of us know how powerful our processors have become in our computers and our tablets and our phones. You know, they've become amazingly powerful. And that amazing power is demonstrated on the blue line at the bottom. So imagine that blue line is the amazing power in your computer or your mobile phone or your tablet, right? The blue line. It's growing, isn't it? Growing amazingly, right? Now you look at how much the GPU has grown. And these are absolute numbers, okay? So you can see, I mean, you know, I don't know, 16 or so times more powerful just in 2 generations of microprocessors. And you know, the current generation is called Kepler, the next one's called a Maxwell, the previous was called a Fermi, and notice the names of scientists. So there's some message here. It's all about changing the sciences and changing the engineering community. So these GPUs, which will keep getting more powerful, you'll see, you know, today you have this amazing reality with this interactive gaming. They're going to be doing even more cool things, you know. If you look at skin, you know, the way light goes through skin, there's reflection, there's refraction, there's diffusion, there's subsurface scattering. The light goes under the skin and moves around. So we're solving this, you know, sub-scattering problem as well. For those of you who are women, and you know, most people kind of think women are not geeky enough, and they're not scientific, and not technologists. That's complete bullshit. And one of my colleagues, she's a lady, her name is Sarah Tariq, T-A-R-I-Q, Sarah Tariq, nice name. Both communities reflected in that. And she did a fabulous presentation, it's on the public domain, talking about how her journey from gaming and the science of gaming. She used to design the hair and the clothes because she was the girl on the team, and you know, that's what girls do. And now she is doing some amazing work with the biology community. And she's talked you through her journey, through the science of this change. And any of you who are interested, I've in the PDF file that I'll provide to the organizers, I've given you a reference to that presentation. And please take a look at it, and it's got some amazing facts and mathematics and so on. It actually shows you the maths of how you simulate hair or fabric, for example. So GPUs are doing these kind of very cool things for consumers. But what's interesting for me and for entrepreneurs in the other space, the B2B space, is what it does for businesses. So this is a very interesting video. And this is used by our defense forces. The image on the left is what you actually get from the drone. And the image from the right is what you're seeing in the command and control center. And you can, you know, from something that's completely jerky, you know, you can actually see, well, the guy in the front actually has a Kalashnikov and could potentially be a terrorist. And this is an unclassified video. You know, when you sort of see the image of Obama and Hillary Clinton sitting in the control room when the Osama bin Laden attack is going on, they're not watching the image on the left. They're watching the image on the right. It's enhanced. And in this case, it's just 2 algorithms, stabilization and rectification. Okay? And this is one industry which is being changed. There are many industries that are being changed like this. They're all graphically intense applications. Each of these applications runs 10 to 100 times better than the previous generation of technology, whether it's satellite imaging, it's sort of aerodynamics, the electromagnetics, which is sort of the way the antennae work, it's Maxwell's equations, the way this whole notion of computer vision, and indeed signal processing, which is a euphemism for sort of tapping phone calls and radar and stuff like that. So these applications run dramatically faster, and not only do they run dramatically faster, they're dramatically cheaper as well. So when you have to put them into data centers and you go to your IT guy, the image on the top right-hand screen is a protein, and biologists simulate these proteins. There's something called AMBER, which is the software that simulates these proteins. And here's an example of, with a traditional technology, how this takes 12 computers and it takes 5 days to simulate 250 nanoseconds of time for these 25,000 atoms. And you can see it takes 5 days, and the old technology, it takes only 2 days for the new technology, but look at the cost. It costs you $562 for a simulation versus $20 for a simulation. And this is happening all over this industry, whether it's oil and gas, the defense services, the intelligence community, the medical community, the simulation community, and so on. 10 to 100 times better, 5 to 25 times cheaper. And that's why it's disruptive. This is once you have this technology, you can start to do very interesting things with simulation. Everyone knows, there's no point making a physical good. It's better to simulate it using the computer. So this is the famous Toto toilet. I'm sure many of you know a Toto toilet. My wife and her sister went to visit my daughter at Google, and my wife's sister is a very senior executive at the World Bank. And my daughter was working there, and she invited them for lunch. And she's a World Bank executive, so she goes into the Google bathroom and comes out and says, my sister, oh my God, you gotta go to the toilet. My sister said, what do you mean? It's got a Toto. Right? So this is the Toto toilet. And let me just show you, actually, I think we're short of time. If you were watching the simulation, basically what we're trying to do is to get down from 1.6 gallons of water to 1 gallon of water per flush, thereby saving a whole amount. But it's got to do it properly. It's got to do it properly. So you have to simulate the mathematics of, let's see if I can play it again. So think about the water coming in, think about the curvature, think about the material properties, think about the adhesion between the molecules and the cohesion with the material that's in the toilet. It's got to go down and it's got to go back up. There's air in it, and all of that's got to be simulated. We're looking at significant. In the past, just a simple simulation would take a very, very big computer. A very large computer, I kid you not, okay? And to generate that reality, these bubbles are real. When engineers look at it, they don't want to look at something fake, like a video or a movie. They want to see the real thing. And now it takes only 150 nodes of a pretty big supercomputer, right? So it gives you an idea of the problems and the challenges. And 150 nodes, running it probably for an hour, you do it at Amazon, costs you $300. That's the most expensive you can buy, on Amazon EC2 in terms of an instant. So now it's worth doing that kind of simulation, right? So things get changed. Things change as a result of these GPUs. And essentially what's happening is, for the tiny community, engineers and scientists, if you add up all of the world's engineers and scientists, they probably represent, 0.2% of humanity, right? They do a lot, but they're very tiny, tiny community. But these GPUs are pretty much becoming standard in the data center for the scientific and technical community. And that's pretty cool. I mean, that's good. I make money, I go get my business up to $1 billion, maybe it'll become $2 billion in a few years' time. But what's more interesting is what's happening in the rest of the community. And so simply doing more power and simply making it cheaper is a necessary condition, but what's most interesting is what's happening with developers. And so, the Kepler GPU that we put out, it has, for those of you who are technical, it has 2,600 programmable cores. And it does this thing called parallel programming. Is required in order to make use of the GPU. The best CPU, even now, has about 8 cores. And just a few years ago, it had just 1 core. So people did sort of serial programming. You went from step A, and then step B, and then step C. But if you have 2,600 cores, you can get 2,600 things potentially done at the same time, provided you can program it. Now, this concept has always existed. It was hard. And some of you went to computer science or engineering classes, probably did a class even in parallel programming and tried your best to do something with it, right? But an engineer called Ian Buck, who was doing his PhD, came up with a better way of doing this. and introduced this concept called CUDA. So CUDA is to parallel programming what Java was to the internet. So the internet was always there. You know, some of us sent internet emails in 1985. Some of us programmed the internet using remote procedure calls in 1988. But only when Java came along did the internet become really programmed, because the programming environment got created. So this is what's happening in parallel computing. This architecture called CUDA is just starting to proliferate everywhere. And the early indicators show, you know, in 2008 when CUDA just started, even then there were 4,000 papers at scholar.google.com. A few months ago there were 37,000 academic papers. Now a lot of them are, you know, pretty crappy academic papers, but you know, they're just sort of designed to get you a, you know, publication, right? But some of them are really groundbreaking, and I've shared a few in the references. But the more interesting thing also is, you know, in the video I think there was 300 universities teaching CUDA parallel programming. There's now 600, more than 600 universities teaching it. You know, so, and the interesting thing from a developer is you've got 430 million at this point of time. I'm just going to share something very important with you. There were 430 million programmable devices that could use this parallel computing architecture. And these were all in computers. These are Mac computers, laptops. You know, it's this CUDA, not a lot of you have got your computers open, but it's CUDA capable device right in front of you. So from a developer perspective, this becomes very, very interesting. And now what we've facilitated is working with our buddies over at Udacity and Coursera, put this in the public domain. So, you know, for an esoteric subject like CUDA, you know, I think the number right now is about 95,000 people have registered. About 2,600 people have actually gone through the whole course and completed it. And actually there's, you know, with Udacity and Coursera, there's a new proctoring system. So 940 people have actually received a certificate in parallel programming, right? So this is you know, it's a movement that started, and it's going to grow and grow and grow. And it really is easy, you know, you just get to hang out. And what drives this is, you know, the kids like to write games, you know, that's what's nice. You know, my daughter writes a game for the, you know, for the phone, right? But essentially what she's doing is parallel programming. And so this is what's really, really interesting that's happening. And as a result of this, you know, here are some early things that are going on as a result of making this amazing computing environment available in an easier to program way, okay? So, you know, Salesforce.com, for example, is analyzing all of their Twitter feeds for sentiment. Now, they could do it conventionally, but because they have so many thousands and thousands of clients, all of whom want a customized one, you can do the exact same job on all these programmable cores. Amazing work. Shazam, you know, I saw Lady Gaga as the 10 billionth tag on Shazam. And those of you who are watching an ad, you know, I think I was watching NFL, and you know, the General Motors ad came and has Shazam logo. And if you put your phone or tablet in front of it, it knows where you are, and it'll give you a personalized offer, you know, to go to the particular dealership to get a particular offer based on your tastes and so on. So, you know, and Carlos Slim just put 40 million. Carlos Slim of, you know, Telecom Mobile, the Mexican billionaire, put another $40 million into this company because of the traction they're receiving. Now, the key point is traditionally this has been done by, you know, tagging, but when you're looking at audio and video and you're trying to find things, and we're looking at segments of it or variants of it, you know, imagine how many variants there are of Mozart's 40th Symphony, for example, written by whom, and so on. The tagging concept does not work. It requires something called deep machine learning. And as the computer, as the engine listens, to things, it recognizes over a period of time, and it gets better and better. And you know, it isn't intelligence actually, it's actually better sensing. And it's having a memory, and it's setting some thresholds around when to say, yes, I've recognized it. You know, just like the human brain works. The human brain actually reacts to senses, and we're going to be simulating the human brain in a better way soon. Cortexica is very interesting for eBay. You take a picture, you say, hey, this is an interesting pattern, you upload it, it will give you exact patterns, similar patterns, accessories that might go with this pattern, and so on and so forth. And it's learning as you go, and the learning is personalized to who you are. So if you are a particular type of individual, as it understands your preferences, so, you know, way back when Amazon started, and you know, people were amazed, wow, it's giving me recommendations in a book, right? Imagine it's giving you recommendations on clothes and accessories and styles and so on, based on you, yourself, across billions of people, right? And then finally, of course, the whole, you know, computer vision thing. I'm a cricket buff, so, you know, ESPN. I don't know if you've seen the latest wagon wheel, and it just, you know, all of that, you know, it's tracking. You'll see there's probably a 3-second delay between the actual video and the video you see on your internet, you know, through internet TV. And it's doing a lot of encoding and decoding and transcoding. And you can, you know, every time you hear the word encode, decode, encrypt, decrypt, you should automatically register in your mind, that's a place for parallel programming. That's a place for a GPU. You know, encode and decode. Your DNA is also encoded and decoded, right? Your signals in the air are encoded and decoded. So anything to do with encoding and decoding is kind of pretty cool. So we talked about kind of what's going on with the 400 million devices. Now watch this video. I'm sorry about the logos.
Meet Ira, one of the most detailed digital models of the human face ever created. We first introduced Ira a few months ago at the GPU Technology Conference. Computer graphics have amazed people for years, but they've fallen short in one thing that's most important in telling a good story: the human face. Not only does Ira look real, but this is all generated in real time. His skin has bumps and blemishes that move and stretch as Ira blinks and grimaces. Those imperfections make Ira far more real than the fake, rubbery faces generated by previous generations of graphics technology. Ira has always been shown using a GeForce TIECON graphics card, the highest performing single-chip GeForce ever. While Kepler is the world's most efficient GPU architecture, this demo was intense, running at a full HD resolution and using a full Kepler, 7 billion transistors, more than 250 watts. Today we have something special to show you. Ira is now mobile.
So the key point is there were 400 million devices. Now the people at USC who wrote the simulator for Ira, this is, by the way, not a video. When you see the actual demo, it's not a video. You can play around with Ira. You can ask Ira to smile and wink and all kinds of, you know, things. It's all done in real time. You can change the light settings. You can, you know, it's all interactive. It's all a simulation. And you know, the programmers wrote it in CUDA, and it used to run on a big, you know, GPU that goes into a server or a computer. And now the same program will run on a phone, a tablet, and you know, a new car, and so on. So what does that mean? I mean, obviously, if you're a gamer, if you guys doing gaming, it means you can write once and deploy these wonderful games that you used to write on PCs and consoles and so on, and deploy them in mobile phones and tablets. And that opens up a whole new market for the gaming guys. And of course, on our side, all sorts of interesting things happen in the enterprise. So I'm gonna kind of like talk about what I see with my customers and a lot of startups, what kind of interesting, cool things are happening. And I have no real idea what the next big thing is. I'm not a venture capitalist like these guys, and you know, I'm not a visionary, but I can share with you what I think is kind of happening out there. So the first thing which I observed, so a few weeks ago, we went to this conference called SIGGRAPH. A couple of my partners, a company called RTT, which stands for Real-Time Technology. They work in the automotive industry with a company called Chiron, who makes very, very big interactive panels. We showed a demonstration of a virtual car with augmented reality. And on our blog site, lots of people have posted, you know, how was that experience? And people walked in and they actually thought they were sitting in a Mercedes car. They were actually sitting in a Mercedes. There was no car at all. No car at all. And you could hear the sound, you could feel the wind in your, you know, in your convertible, you could sense the G-forces, you had that absolute feeling of a car. What's that worth to a designer? It's huge. Right now they make hundreds of cars just for testing. Now that's interesting, and that's done. I mean, you know, RTT is making a ton of money on that. And by the way, RTT was started in 1999, and you know, they've gone public in Austria. They're one of Austria's sort of hottest companies. But here's a very interesting, this is a brand, you know, relatively brand new company, Israeli company, RealView. Similar technology. And you know, when you go into an MRI machine or a CT machine, a GPU is doing the scanning, right? You know, you go in there, 1 hour later, out of an MRI, you get these wonderful pictures, right? You know, and have you often wondered, well, nobody sent a camera into your skin to take a picture, right? This is calculated using algorithms. There's 64 GPUs in a big Siemens MRI machine. So what they're doing is they're taking these images, which are coming out of the 3D tomography or coming out of, you know, other forms of like angioradiology and so on, and they are compositing it into a real 3D holographic view. And they're working with doctors and surgeons, so you can actually look at, you know, the heart and discuss it and rotate it and move it and, you know, collaborate on it before you actually do a surgery, when you're working on that patient's real data. So, you know, if we think that we can do this with life-changing, you know, and these are very heavily regulated. Dr. K will obviously, being a cardiologist, will testify to this. You can't just play around, you know, with people's bodies. So this is happening in our lifetime. And there are people around you who are doing this amazing work. And even though this industry is highly regulated, there are great opportunities for entrepreneurs. And you know, this is an example of imaging. There's examples in sequencing, in cytometry, and all sorts of other instruments. The second thing which I want to share with you is the image on the right, on your left, on your right, sorry, on your right. And you look at this, well, so wow, that's a cool image. And this is an image produced by Dr. Ezer Abelman. And he is a fellow at Baylor and a Harvard fellow. And when I was watching his talk, the gentleman next to me said, you know, he'd heard a rumor this guy might get the Nobel Prize for medicine. So he's a pretty bright guy. And there's a 1 hour talk on the internet that I've given as a reference for you, and you must watch this talk. So he shows you the mathematics of genomics. And he starts out very simply by explaining, you know, how Facebook photos work, and if, you know, your photo is close to somebody else's photo, that means there's some sort of relationship, you know, depending on how many times you're in the same photo, and you notice there are different patterns, and so on. And he says, well, why is all this important? He says, imagine we have the human gene, you know, which is 3 billion base pairs, about 2 meters, you know, from top to bottom. That's one genome. And imagine this one genome for each of us gets folded in so many different ways. And that same genome appears in every cell in your body. In your heart cell, in your liver cell, in your kidney cell, in your muscles, and so on. And you say, well, how the heck did that happen? The same genome gets manifested in so many different ways. It's because it gets folded in multiple ways. You know, there's 3 billion, so, you know, there's a huge amount of combinations. Think about a matrix with 3 billion rows and 3 billion columns. It's 9 into 10 to the power of 18 cells in there. So that's a huge, huge matrix. And what he's done is showing with this mathematics, he's actually assembled pictures of the chromosomes, pictures of all the different cells. And he shows these wonderful carpet pattern type of things that are all generated using mathematics. Now, why is this relevant? As soon as we start to make, the body more, we have mathematics of the body, we can start to get more deterministic, which means, therefore, it's termed personalized medicine, personalized healthcare. It actually starts with mathematics. And this type of mathematics is not possible without the power and the programmability that we talked about. So there's things going on right now. I was with some there's a Jewish entrepreneurs club in Silicon Valley. A lot of very, very bright people out there, and they are actually doing this stuff right now. So the other area, which is very interesting, is this whole area of computer vision and machine learning working together. So I've done sort of three kind of examples. Elon Musk spoke 2 days ago at our technology conference. So we have, our topmost engineers all have a conference, because they need to do it once in a while. And their chief guest was Elon Musk. And as you know, in the Tesla Model S, we have 2 GPUs, and the entire experience is all about, the visual experience. I mean, it's not a car, it's just a mobile phone that moves, right? So Elon actually tweeted pretty soon after this meeting with our scientists, so maybe that was the reason. And he says, I am hiring people to make an autopilot for the Model S. So the whole notion of, the Google driverless car and so on, and sensing and responding just like the brain does, it's all about computer vision. Lots of sensors, lots of cameras, and that's kind of what the big boys do, right? Everyone's doing it. But look at that little device on the right-hand side. That is the Parrot AR drone. And it's a very simple device. You go in, you pick it up at Fry's or, whatever your local store is. And it's a drone. And it has cameras, and it flies around like it's called a quadrocopter, and we can fly one around over here. And this drone has sold somewhere between 200 and 500,000 units. 200 and 500,000 units. What the hell? You can't buy it at a discount. You can check Amazon.com, everything. It's not discounted. These are flying off the shelves. Little company, nobody's heard of them, right? And what our guys do is, because it's an Android device, so it runs in our standard operating system, we basically interfaced our Shield game console to this device. And so you can control it, by the way, with your phone or remote control and so on. But the interesting thing about controlling it with a game console, just like, by the way, the medical guys do the same thing, is the game console is a beautiful, you can move it around, up and down, so much easier than a phone, and it's just designed to do that. So now you have people, and you can see there's tons of YouTube videos and people, walking around with a drone and so, looking around their garden to see what's going on, and, does this species watering, where are the weeds? It's like, wow. And, you can imagine all kinds of interesting things happening as a result of this drone. That's remote control. So once it's on the internet, it's programmable, you can send it around, it's got cameras, it's, and it'll learn. You can embed machine learning in it. So machine learning combined with computer vision. Amazing innovation is going to happen. So drones are not just used for bad things, depending on which side you are. It's very controversial. They can be used for a lot of good stuff, a lot of interesting things, a lot of new applications. So one example from a startup is this company called Universal Robotics, a brand new company. They are using, so they built a robot, it looks at things, and there's tons of applications that business, that pitch, says they're going to conquer the world, this robot, it's going to do everything, but right now they're focused on logistics. And they're making these robots with this computer vision and machine learning for logistics companies. And all it does is it looks at the package, it recognizes what it is, it doesn't just look at the barcode, which is what everyone's always done. It says, oh, that's a brand. What kind of good is it? What, is it fragile? Is it a possibility it might break? All kinds of learnings. What size is it? What shape is it? How should I carry it? How should I package it? The robot can decide all of these things. And that's why they're using the word autonomous. It's going to look and learn, or feel and learn, right? Sense and learn. So all of these companies are working on algorithms that sense and learn. And that's how you can solve some very interesting problems. There are problems everywhere waiting to be solved. And these robots are not expensive any longer. used to be very expensive. You know, certainly the ones you have at Ford Motor look really expensive, but you know, the one that cleans your home, that's a pretty inexpensive robot. And you know, it doesn't have any real sensors, you know, that it could have much cooler sensors. So this is a very interesting area that's being enabled as a result. And then the last thing I wanted to share with you is, you know, as all these sensors kind of happen, and you know, they're everywhere, and they're, you know, always on, it generates a lot of data. You know, everyone knows that. You go to any big data conference. But the way you look at this data, the way you analyze this data, you have to think about it exactly like the brain does it, you know. The brain looks at something and says, I know that person's got blonde hair. I know that person, you know, is from Andhra Pradesh. How does the brain know that? It just knows it because of A, senses, and B, learning, right? But what's happening is when it becomes visual, when your eyes look at it, all kinds of exciting things happen. So this whole notion of visual analytics is very interesting. So this example, this is a company called Cinescope. They've put together some very interesting ways of visualizing data over time. You know, there's lots of things, widgets, etc. But this particular visualization was of all the cell phone traffic that's going on in a particular area of France. And it won the D4D award, it's a D4D award, the best visualization award in the most recent conference. And they use GPUs to do this, and it shows you in real time what's happening with calls. And then you say, well, what could happen as a result of this? Of course, you could, you know, reconfigure the system. You could understand whether it was a disaster somewhere. You could understand those incidents, you know, because these kind of, maybe it's somebody's birthday, you know, these kind of things generate more traffic, less traffic, etc. So that's what's happening in visual analytics. You know, when I go into Wall Street nowadays, you know, the entire portfolios are these huge visual walls, which have this kind of heat mapping visual analytics. And you can, you know, touch them, drill down, you can calculate the risk coefficient within the day, you know, across the day, across continents, and so on. So amazing applications for visual analytics. So with that, I hope I've kind of shared with you some ideas. I hope it's generated some interesting thoughts in your mind. In the handout, I've got some additional examples of even more interesting things around augmented reality, around computer vision, machine learning, and biological computing. At the end of the day, it's about sort of the senses and the brain and this amazing sort of parallel computing engine that's more easy to program, that's easier to program, allowing you and investors and you being the entrepreneurs opportunities to solve new, cool problems. You know, not every problem has to be e-commerce, you know, or websites. We can do cool things and kind of, you know, have meaning in our life. So that's what I wanted to share with you. I hope you found it useful. I hope you found it informative. When we founded, I was involved in founding TIE in London in 1988. I was the only tech guy in that room at that time. Everyone else was from finance and making hamburger buns and things like that. And the objective of TIE is to educate, inspire, and inform, and kind of foster this whole notion of entrepreneurship. So I hope I've done that in the course of the last 40 minutes. So, okay. I'm happy to take questions. Do you want to take questions? Yeah. So, who's going to ask the first question? That's not technical. Yeah.
Hi, do you use any tunnel FAT in the future? Type of chip, transistor called the tunnel FET?
No, I think...
using quantum mechanics?
Yeah, so this is, I think what you're talking about is an even further innovation, which is called quantum computing, okay? Which is still in the distant horizon. There's a company called D-Wave that has built a quantum computer. So basically, I think, is that what you're referring to? Right. So GPUs were invented about 15 years ago. The programmable GPU is about 5 years old. And there are people who are thinking, what's going to happen beyond that? And there's this notion called quantum computing. So our researchers are involved in that exercise. We know the people, but it's not yet ready for prime time. It's got to become, see, the main thing is these things, you've got to become programmable and affordable, right? So the difference is, GPUs are now everywhere. So from an entrepreneur perspective, it's wow, I could hit a lot of people, right? I don't have to, go to somewhere, esoteric just to solve a particular problem. Whereas quantum computing is still in the research labs. The national laboratories will buy some. Maybe JP Morgan might buy one, to play around with. And the other interesting area, by the way, in addition to quantum computing, is what IBM is doing with Watson, which is also a very interesting experiment. So sorry not to fully answer.
One of the things that's in the news right now across the world is the America's Cup.
Yeah.
And all the competitions, these 72-foot high-speed catamaran sailboats, and they had to lower the wind speed at which they're allowed to sail because they were crashing. And some of the most expert sailors in the world died.
Yeah.
And what they're using is these high-speed foils to reduce the drag and hydrodynamic principles there that allow the vessels to go much faster. But because they're up on foils, they're tremendously unstable. Can we use a GPU for these type of things to react faster and to keep it controlled so these people wouldn't die?
Yeah, so it's absolutely. In fact, if you look at nvidia.com/blogs, I was at the America's Cup on Saturday actually watching the race. There's actually a blog post about the team that has used GPUs, and which is the New Zealand team. So they built that special foil, right, which goes underneath, and so they use GPUs in the design cycle. Now the other thing which is very interesting, so to do better simulations, you also need the application software to use the GPU. So the latest version of a software called ANSYS and this software called OpenFOAM, which do so there's two parts of the problem: the structural problem, which is the materials and the stability of the structure, and the second is the aerodynamics problem, so the fluid dynamics and how it's going to work on the water and the air. And so the fluid dynamics problem, the software is called ANSYS Fluent, is the commercial one, and OpenFOAM, which is the open source one. And so that just got GPU accelerated. And people are now using GPUs to do that simulation. And it's going to cost a lot less than before.
We're actually in the process right now of creating an America's Cup for powerboats.
Very good.
It's a 27,000-mile race around the world. Mm-hmm. And we'll be using foils in that process as well. And we're trying to overcome all of the different aberrations and problems involved in that. Would you be interested in partnering in something like that?
Sure. I mean, I'll point you to all the resources you can use. I mean, basically, it's all, there's a lot. Yes, let's talk offline.
Okay, I can check.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay, Rob. What is your industry, from this point of view, doing to educate the new next generation on nanotechnology?
Yeah, we are not doing nanotechnology. Our mission is to educate people on how to program for a parallel programming environment. And so what we've done is we've given courseware to all these 600 universities. We produce little demos, so you can actually download. The first demo we did was a thing called Rocket Man. And Rocket Man goes down a railway track, and there's physics about velocity and force. Rocket Man blows up, so there's particle physics that happen, there's explosions, there's thermodynamics. And it's all about getting the kids to apply physics and mathematics in a visual way and to be able to program that. And it's actually quite easy. You feed in the equations and you just say run, and things happen. And then you say, well, that's not what I wanted to happen, let me do it differently. So we developed this courseware, we put it out into the public domain with the evolution of these massively online open courseware, MOOCs, like Coursera and Audacity. We put that into the course. We've adapted the courses to make them interactive, so there are lessons, and you get feedback from experts about what you did well and badly. And so this is a movement, but our mission is to educate people on parallel programming. We can't educate people on material science or physics or nanotechnology, which is what you mentioned. And in fact, that is, if you're making a platform like we do, one key lesson is you have to educate the ecosystem. You have to seed the ecosystem. It's a necessary condition for success. Okay?
Is console physics one of the expensive simulators that you were talking about?
Which one?
Console, C-O-M-S-O-L.
I don't know the company, but basically, what sort of simulator is it?
Like yours?
It's a console simulator. So
It's Charlie, Oscar, Mike.
yeah.
Oscar, Lima.
So, I mean, most of these console, simulators, whether they're simulating a game console or a flight simulator, for example, an automobile simulator, a heart surgery simulator, they all use some form of GPU. Some of them may use alternative GPUs, right? So it could be they may not be using, we're not the only people making GPUs. Intel makes GPUs as well, AMD makes GPUs, and other people simulate GPUs too. So they could be using somebody else. But, lots of people use them.
Thank you.
We'll have time for just one more question.
Can shares where are the gaps today between state of the art of visual computing versus where it can go?
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, I think that there are lots of gaps. There are just, we are nowhere near kind of, what human beings do. Nowhere near. To simulate, to give you a sense of where, to simulate the human brain will, even with these very, very powerful processors, a machine simply cannot be built. We're talking about this exascale, the exaflop and the exascale, and we've got to get it done within 20 megawatts of power consumption. Even an exascale machine will not be able to even slightly simulate a human brain. Okay, that's how far we've got to go with sensory computing.
Thank you, Shankar. Another round of